Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, here with the much better looking, better half of this operation, Andrew David Needham.
If you have the flu for a week and a half, then I finally take the...
It might be the fever fog.
Yeah, I don't trust your judgment at all right now.
You shouldn't. Sudafed is strongly influeing.
Prescription strength Sudafed.
Yes. Well, we recorded once early on in my sickness, and I think you let me have tea. It was very, very kind, but little did we know.
The bomb was coming. It was ticking.
It was not just a little cold. So thank you, influenza.
Influenza. That's right.
Yeah. I appreciate not at all your presence this last
you
week.
tried. You're such a champ, that mother ethic, that hardworking woman. You're like, I'm powering through this thing, and I could see you like crashing, and I was like, hey babe, you might want to consider going to urgent care. No, I'm getting up in the morning and I'm going to work. So you finally heeded my counsel.
Yes, I did. I don't know why when you said mother ethic, that is not what I thought was about to come out. I was like,
You're
wow.
one tough mother ethic.
Grateful for urgent care, the nice doctors there, and very thankful for medication.
Yeah, I have a theory though, because for Christmas this year, I get you this electric fireplace, and I built this shiplap like thing, and we, set you all up with your Netflix and the whole deal. And then you're like, I'm going to spend a week in bed.
True. I didn't really have the flu. I just wanted to stare at my new fire.
Yeah.
I wish that was true.
I was DoorDash for a week here. So
yes, you made an amazing nurse.
That's right.
In fact, somebody sent me I think it was a video on Instagram, and it was one of these reels that they made that basically are making the husband look like, when the wife's down sick, the husband just can't function. And I'm watching this video thinking, once again, complete opposite in this marriage.
It's not the opposite. It's just we're not to those extremes. Like, I feel like you take good care. I'm sick, so I'm just putting money in the bank.
Yeah. You were literally delivering soup and like grilled cheese sandwich on a silver platter. Like an actual silver platter.
All the husbands listening to this are like, we need to find a different podcast. All that being said, we had a nice fight before we started this podcast recording. So, let's bring it back to reality.
Like, no matter how many silver platters, it's not going to stop your wife from starting a fight.
Yes.
So
I don't think we had equal part in that. So I'd like my full compliments for...
All right, he served up a fight on a silver platter.
This was a bizarre year because like New Year's Day fell on a Wednesday, which I don't know if you even knew what day it was then, because you were in a fever fog. But then like people were saying it's funny because Thursday the 2nd, and it's like, this is the Mondayest Thursday ever. That was like the phrase.
Yes.
So even at my gym, like I was waiting for that, like, the burst of people to come back. And it's like, it was really like the weekend that it's like, okay, kind of a delayed start. And we got a delayed. This is like, we're going to do a New Year's conversation, and this episode's coming out into 2025. So what we're going to say is like, if you've already failed at all of your resolutions, like restart, refresh.
This is your opportunity.
That's right.
Do what I'm doing. Pretend New Year's hasn't even happened, because I don't remember it. So I'm starting fresh this week. This is my New Year's start.
I was leading worship at a church this morning, and I was like, how many of you guys have written 2024 instead of 2025? And I look at, it's a younger church, and I'm like, these people never write the date. What am I talking about? How many of you on your checks?
They're like, where would I write that? Dear diary.
Dear diary. People have strong opinions on New Year's. There's a lot of different camps. Like, I think it's a popular thing to have like, here's my hot take on New Year's. Like, I'm either like, I'm all about it, or here's my word of the year, or they're like, those people are losers.
Yeah. I have seen everything from the videos of people that are just like these inspirational 2025. I have this word or this intention, and I'm going into this year and I'm going to conquer it all. And then other videos that they're like,
here's your dreams. I'm going to
well, just that sort of, you are the same person on December 31st that you are on January 1st. So
thanks, Eeyore.
and I think some of it is they're can be that temptation to put a whole lot of pressure on the change of date.
Yeah, well, I think there you can go to either extreme, like anything, right? You can go to the like, let's take the classic, the fitness thing, right? I'm gonna join an expensive gym. I'm gonna buy brand new shoes. I'm gonna work out every day for the rest of my life. I am going to be an Olympian by the summer. I'm gonna run a full marathon when I haven't run at all, and like that's just setting yourself up for failure. Like going to that extreme of things that are just like not achievable, setting yourself up to fail. And then there's the other extreme of like, hey, like there are good moments in life to take inventory and just to slow down, pause, think, reflect, look back, look forward. It's an important thing.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast, one of the things I did while I've been sick in bed, and
Didn't you finish every podcast that was ever
Netflix and podcasts,
they're
they're all
done?
done. I'm over it. The podcast was actually talking about this idea of instead of setting New Year's resolutions, it actually started with sort of this inventory. And their suggestion, which I thought was actually really helpful, was to go back through the photos on your phone because we often just forget, like we forget the
Yeah.
things that have happened. And then so they have you go through and sort of take an audit of like highlights and things that you're grateful for, but then going back through and taking time to reflect on what are the things from the year that either were difficult or that you look back and you're like, if I had that to do over, I probably would have done it a little differently. And I thought that was a really cool in terms of being reflective because I do think it's an important thing, not just for New Year's, but New Year's is one of those times where people often their brains are kind of in that space, is taking time to really, truly, and honestly reflect what
Mm.
have these last 12 months look like? What are the things I like about them? What are the things I don't want to carry into this next year?
I think that we should never be opposed to hope, though. I think
Mm,
it's like both hope and grief are part of life, and like there are a lot of things in 2024. Losing a friend to cancer for me, like first friend that was really close to me that passed away, and there's other things. Like there was a lot of things in last year, though there was incredible milestones and things to celebrate. There's a lot of things that were to be grieved and to be mourned and didn't turn out the way that I thought they would, and that's okay. But then to enter and turn into a new year and be like, okay, what I don't want to enter this year sort of like, well, I'm going to tether my I'm going to, put everything down. And just if I have the bar as low as possible, then that's not a very good way to live our lives either.
yeah. No, I like that idea of just a hopeful looking into the next year. And I even think just being prayerful about it versus just not necessarily it just being you're journaling, writing all these grandiose goals and dreams. But for me, it's been a lot of prayer around, well, first, God, heal my body. And then, God, what is it that you have in this year to come? Because I'm coming out of a year and some of the things that I have the most gratitude for are things I wouldn't have even imagined that God
Yeah.
had in store.
Surprises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so just praying over that and God help me to be walking with you in a way that I don't miss these things that you have for me in this upcoming year.
Yeah, I think we'll talk through it more as we get into some of our own sort of observations and hopes and things like that too. But like there have been years for me where it's like very clearly at the beginning of the year, I'm like, this is the word that I'm gonna kind of a theme that I'm hopeful that God will kind of anchor my life around and that. And this year it's sort of I'm actually kind of still working. I have some ideas and I feel like things that God wants to do in me, but I don't have all the language yet. So I'm kind of like taking my time, kind of working, which is kind of fun. So
Yeah, well, when we have time.
yeah.
There's no rules that say by a certain date if you don't have.
You can start again.
Yeah,
Like maybe the best time to join a gym is like the late January. Like,
that's true, February 1st.
that's right. Yeah, it's awesome.
So, real quick, why do you think, in terms of people that have maybe walked through this, ourselves included, you come in strong January 1st and then not so good by mid spring? But what do you think are those things that are part of that setting ourselves up for failure?
I think that two of the roots for me, I can share my own experience, is if I only focus on the outcome and I don't think about the behaviors that lead to that. So, like a lot of these things are common phrases, and I'm probably not attributing to them to the right people. But, it's like when you think about like living a healthier lifestyle, like asking, like, what are the behaviors? It's okay to have an objective to say, like, okay, I want to run a half marathon this year, or I want to do X or Y, or I want to climb a mountain. Those are not terrible things. But then you have to think, okay, what are the behaviors that are going to lead to that ability? So that's number one. And then number two for me is, again, quoting people that I don't know out of context. So this is not me taking credit, but this is something that I really do believe in, is that we overestimate what we can achieve in a short period of time, and we underestimate what we can achieve in a long period of time. One of the things I have really come to is like, if I am not willing to do it for 60 days, like for me, that's like a marker. I would promise you that if you will practice something for 2 months, then you'll have a really good test of whether or not that's something that can kind of catch on in your practices. And so those, I would say those two things is like over focusing on outcomes and not behaviors. And then second, like we don't give ourselves either like even Bible reading programs. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Like sometimes a year is too, if you're not reading the Bible regularly right now, don't try to read the Bible through in a year. Like don't try to do like the hardest, like if you're not hiking mountains, don't go do Kilimanjaro. Like start with a small mountain and do it consistently and then build your way towards those things. And so, yeah.
I think knowing yourself too is a big part of this, is self-awareness, because I do think that people are wired in different ways. There are people that sort of have that, we'll call it like the sprinter
Yep.
mentality versus the marathon mentality, and kind of understanding what are those things for you. Are you somebody that to set a 4-week goal is actually something that is way healthier and more attainable, because 4 weeks is about the max that you can set before, I'm speaking as an ADHD person, like your ADHD kicks in and you're like, "Okay, this feels like an eternity." So, I feel like you're somebody that your wiring, you're naturally kind of that long longer term, like, you can set longer goals, and I'm somebody that actually does better if I set, for the next 4 weeks, I'm committing to this thing. Not that I'm not gonna continue after 4 weeks, but it sort of in my brain makes it very attainable. I can do anything for 4
Yeah.
weeks.
I don't, again, I wouldn't caught on this, get caught on the 60 or, 75 hard or whatever the thing is. But like, I think finding things where we say like, we're going to commit to this for a certain amount of time, that's probably a little bit longer than you think is a good thing to kind of work into. So you mentioned 4 weeks. If you were to go back and answer your own question, like, why do you think that people fail at resolutions, or that is the thing that people struggle with?
I think sometimes people setting unrealistic expectations for themselves, sometimes just setting goals that they think should be their goal, but it's not something they actually want. I bring that back to sort of the self awareness, answering honestly your why. If you were to accomplish whatever goal that you set, like what is one, your why behind it? Is it something you actually really want? Or is it something you think that you're supposed to want? Like, oh, I'm supposed to want to lose weight or weigh this certain amount or read through the Bible in a year, whatever it is. And they sort of set these goals that aren't really aligned with whatever it is that they actually want or are willing to pursue, because there's sacrifice and investment in any goal that you set.
Yeah, I do think like it's easy to kind of take the edge off the like the try hard side, but I do think there are things you need to do to be intentional. And like so like one thing that I've been working on this year, like I've started, this will kind of pivot us into some of this content, but like I was showing you the other day that like I was like I would like to like look at what would be an ideal week, knowing that I'll get probably one of those in 52. That's just something that I've decided to try out this year and see. I don't have an expectation that I'm going to get many ideal weeks, but it's a way for me to kind of think about going into the next chapter, what things could be.
Mm. I think, I don't know, this just came to mind as you were saying it, and it may or may not be helpful, but maybe digging down if you have set goals or things and asking yourself the hard questions of why I've
Why did it go wrong? Yeah.
like, why did it go wrong? Why did I set the goal? And even what do you hope to get out of it might help you set a better goal the next time around.
So let's just talk about the scripture reading thing. I have done times when I've read through the Bible in a year, and then other times when like I'll talk about my discipline that I'm doing more consistently now. But I even changed like what translation of the Bible that I use. Like I might use a more like a New Living Translation or NIV or something that's a little less hard to read than like if I'm doing a chapter a day, which has been my practice. I'll do like a ESV or like a little bit more of an in-depth, theologically robust translation. So there's different things you can do. I'll say another area for me that I've learned over the years is your shutdown and startup routines for your days are massive things. You guys make fun of me for this, but I'll go to extremes where I even like set up the pans on the stove for like making breakfast the next day. But At the least for me, like I try to make sure like almost every day I will lay out my journal, lay out my Bible, lay out the chair that I read in. I'll even like I light a candle every morning when I get up. I'll lay out the lighter. The coffee maker is always preset, and so that I can walk downstairs, pour a cup of coffee, and get right into it. I don't have to do a lot of things to get into the start of things. And then I have kind of a routine in the morning of different things that I do. But we all have our own versions of that, and mine's definitely a little bit more on the diligent side. But I do think
OCD.
how you start and end your day. I have a practice for like writing down the top 3 things that I want to push the next day. And I typically will do that the night before. If not, I'll do it in the morning. But that's one of my practices as well. So nerding out a little bit.
Yes, it's fine.
I'm just
Um,
glazed over.
I did it's the Sudafed, I swear.
Debatable. So I like the structure that you suggested for today. Just coming up with something that we're going to stop doing this year, something that we're going to start doing, and something that we're going to continue doing. And we may have more than one under them. And of course, we will definitely go off script on there. But as you've been laying in bed, wishing that your body would heal this last week, I know I like it make this sound like this was a retreat for you, which it was not. But
Yeah, not so
yeah.
much.
So if you were to start off, what are you going to stop doing this next year?
Doom scrolling. I have and again, some of this is a little off kilter because I have been in bed not feeling good, and it can be more tempting to just be on your phone because,
Actually,
Netflix is all over. One of the things that I've thought about a lot in terms of social media is I go through these phases where I'm like, I just want to cancel all my social media and it's such a waste of time. And it's not all wrong feeling that way. However, I also feel like there is positive sides to social media and connection and encouragement, but one of the things that I really want to be intentional about stopping going into this next year is just scrolling social media for, that which again, the term doom scrolling, but I just realized that in those settings, it's just nothing positive for me is coming out of that. It's often feeding things like I see all these other things that other people are doing, and I'll all of the sudden be questioning my own life and what am I doing with my life and why aren't I doing that or why can't I cook like that person or dress like that person or work out like that? It's just this not healthy for my mental health or
and
anything
it's
else.
not real.
And it's
It's not real life. Yeah.
yeah, it's all filtered. I know.
But when would you say that the use of social media for you is at its best? Like, what is true?
Hmm. That's a good question, and I don't know that I have a great answer because I don't feel like I've ever really found my sweet spot with social media, that it is an arena that I just tend to wrestle with. I feel like my desire is that I use my social media to encourage people, but then my actual, like, execution of social media, I'm not really sure.
Well, you use Marco Polo a lot.
Yes.
And I think, maybe one of the things that you can think about is like, why is Marco Polo so much more life giving than just doom scrolling?
Well, I think because Marco Polo for me is connection with friends that I don't live nearby.
You want to explain what Marco Polo is? I just realized
Oh,
like some
sorry.
people probably don't. I just realized I'm like some people might have no idea what they're talking about.
Marco Polo
Maybe you
is
just play in the pool.
may have played it before. I play it all the time. Just me and my friends, state to state. Marco Polo. It's a video, I guess, like an app that you're sending little video messages back and forth. So think about texting your friend. Instead of texting them, you're actually like, it's a recorded
It's
video
like
of
FaceTime,
you.
but you don't have to be on at the same time.
Yes. You had a really, I'm not going to remember it, but you had this hilarious, your perspective on Marco Polo was like something about like a narcissist favorite app because literally you're just talking uninterrupted, like, you could
Yeah,
just talk
no.
and talk and talk and leaving a message for this person, it's your face, like, you're not it's not like FaceTime, they're not
Hey, it's
necessarily
me.
yeah, yeah, so you're like, yeah, I can see why a
Well, you
narcissist
just
would
made it
love
sound
it.
bad, but at its best, like whether it's texting or, I mean, I hate group chats, but I love texting people. And I think Marco Polo for you is something where that is like a redemptive reality. And so, like, I wonder if rather than thinking about broadcasting to as many people as possible, if you continue to focus on like even taking 10% more of investing in the people that you are close to through using your phone, that might be an interesting thing to think about.
Hmm, I like that. Yeah, and honestly, the only reason Marco Polo versus text you can't text and drive, that's not safe, but you can Marco Polo and drive because you just don't look at the phone, they're just staring at you
I
talking
do
to
not
yourself.
recommend this. I do not endorse this. This slightly off script podcast and the associated LLC does not endorse this behavior or activity.
Just don't look at your phone.
Do you
That's the rule. You just talk away.
I
It's a
hope our
beautiful
insurance
thing.
company doesn't watch this.
How about you? What are you gonna stop?
I feel like I have overlooked the gift of where we live. And part of that is we went on this journey this year where we were thinking about that we might live somewhere else. And we talked about that in previous episodes. So I won't recap all that. But I do feel like through this year and coming into the new year, for me, it's been like, I want to just appreciate what we have. And I think doing the project that we just did in our master bedroom, and now you're like, my wheels are spinning. Like, I'm like, oh, we could paint this wall in the bathroom. And yeah, I have to go at the speed of our budget. But at the same time,
Which
like,
is negative 50
yeah,
miles per
I'm
hour.
gonna stop spending money on our house that we don't have.
Reverse.
But at the same time, I think that's something that I want to stop doing is just kind of taking that for because we've in this last couple of years, like, and I still love travel. Like, I don't want that to go away, but I have been thinking about like just a little bit of a recalibration in that area and then falling more in love with our home. Yeah, that would be my stop. How about on the start end? What would you say?
So my start is that I am going to start stewarding my 41-year-old body.
Stewarding is a very 40-year-old word.
Yeah,
That's
I thought it
I
would
don't
be.
think 30-year-olds use that word.
Yeah, no. I legitimately this year, one of my big intentional kind of shifts
Mhm.
is researching and implementing kind of changes to my own like routine, how I work out, things like that, that are actually helpful to a 41-year-old Bethany that are different than when I was in my 20s and in my 30s. And so, not in a negative, I'm getting so old kind of way, but I think for me this year, it's about owning and embracing middle age in a way that I am actually really taking care of myself for my long-term health.
Yeah. I resonate with that. Not that I'm stewarding my 41-year-old body because I'm 43 now, but I joined a gym a couple of years like before at 39 and I had never worked out like consistently and I really love it and I've been going consistently, but it's one of those things that I went a lot and then I was always setting PRs all the time because like, like the fastest mile I've ever run and rode the fastest whatever. And then I've had a few injuries and it really set me back. Like I was like kind of depressed because everything was up and to the right. And then this, and I've kind of honestly had to come to realize like if you're going to work out that hard and that many times in a month, what does that look like? And then recalibrate and also just get comfortable with like I may never run a mile that fast again, but that doesn't mean that I can't have goals and I can't achieve and feel things. So I'm still learning that, but I'm going to kind of draft off of your goal.
Aside from like some crazy fast bear on steroids, I don't think anyone needs to run as fast as you were running a mile. There's no point other than bragging rights.
Well,
So,
some people would say that about you pushing like weight, like unless a car falls on you, you're not going to need to.
if I can leg press that bear away from me, I don't need to outrun it. Just saying.
No. Why is it always a bear? It's a
Kick
bus.
it.
It's always run over by a bus, chased by a bear.
I'm gonna kick that bear in the face so hard. You'll be running. I'll be like, I
It'll
got
barely
this.
know it hits it.
Oh gosh.
Right, right.
We're gonna stop dad jokes this
Yeah,
year.
that's good. What would be something that would be like a more tangible example of stewarding over your 41-year-old a different way?
Tangible, I love lifting weights, but for a long time, if I could lift weights 6 days a week,
Yep.
and we're talking like heavy weights 6 days a week, I would do it because I loved it. I just keep beating up my body and keep going forward. And I realized that that actually is not healthy or helpful for my 41-year-old body who much prefers rest days and recovery days and stretching and
You
mobility.
say that like you just heard the word for the first time. Have you ever heard of this thing called stretching?
Yeah.
How about cardio?
No, who said anything about cardio? That is not a goal.
This is where we are very different.
And honestly, even I joke about the cardio, but before, for me, the idea of cardio always, if I'm gonna do that, it's gonna be it's gonna be like high intensity,
Yep.
crazy and coming back to, you know what? Walking is the healthiest thing for me in where I'm at with my health, just getting my steps in a way that actually helps my body recover
Mm,
and stay healthy for the long run and not constantly be coming back from injuries or different things. So those are things for me. And I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I made the leap and got my hormones tested recently and trying to sort of figure out where things are at. And so
stay
stay
tuned.
stay tuned for those results. You're gonna be all over the map. But
Special release and breaking news.
breaking news, this makes so much more sense now. But that's some of the things for me that I'm kind of working towards and just trying, yeah, maybe just listening to my body better than I have
Okay.
before.
Yeah. That's great.
So, all right. Did you give us your start?
No,
All right.
I asked you first.
Yeah.
I started with you. So I am starting a new job, which is really exciting. And it's very similar work to what I've been doing, but in a little more concentrated way. And I get to be the point leader as executive director of this new collaborative, which I'm really excited about. But one of the things I've been thinking about in leadership, this is sort of a just an awareness piece for me, is that I like to be liked.
Mm,
I'm very good at connecting with people, and I've been able to navigate complicated relational situations with churches that are very different from each other. And I kind of know those waters, and it's part of what God has done to make me who I am. And it's a good thing. I had a friend one time say, like, you're kind of like the Jim Halpert of New England. Like everybody kind of likes you. And I'm like, and on one hand, like you take that as a huge compliment. But I've been realizing like this year, I'm like, to step into this opportunity and to do it the way that God has called me to the fullest, it's going to be being, this is the kind of the thing I'm going to start. I'm going to start being more intentional about being willing to disappoint people. And that comes on a couple different fronts, maybe being unwilling to say something hard, being more willing in this situation to ask for things. Some of the part of this job is going to be fundraising and building a team, and that's going to require, and not everybody's going to say yes. But I just feel like a sense of like courage and wanting to lean into that, because I have that achiever performer thing, and I can do a lot of work. That's the other thing. And as I've been thinking about this new role, it's like I don't want to just go fast and alone, but I do want to go and build a team. And the only way that I'm gonna do that is I have to be willing to ask people for help, be willing to disappoint people. And that's kind of one of the things I'm gonna I don't would say it would start, because I've definitely disappointed plenty of people over the years.
you have listeners that are
People
like,
are like,
it's
wow,
not your
yeah,
first time.
people calling in. This you did not just start that. This is Jimmy from 2007, and I'd like to report that. No, just kidding. But that's one of the things that I just want, and that's where I'm like trying to figure out like what does that mean and what does that look like, and is there a phrase and a word that I want to focus on? But I'm going to start being more willing and more courageous in the opportunity that may lead to somebody being disappointed on the other side of the conversation.
Hmm. I think that's a really powerful one. And as somebody who knows you and sort of that wiring to achieve and want to make people happy and have their approval, I it feels wrong to say I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you to
I really hope you
disappoint
disappoint a
people.
lot of people this year.
No, but I think this is one of those things that is in order to grow and to move forward, like you do have to reach that point where you disappoint people because if you just stay in that safe space of wanting everybody to like you all the time, then you end up not accomplishing much of anything. So,
Yeah. There's a couple conversations over the last couple months with friends and family, and even some job opportunities that I ended up passing on. And I've, just really started to pay attention to like the emotions that I was feeling as like somebody would disappointed on the other side of the conversation. It's like, oh, I want to do it well. Like this is not like I'm gonna like drop EQ off the table, but I just want to be willing to go into our conversation in grace, in love, and then not have it go the way that I want it to. I'm
yeah, this isn't just a goal for you to go make a bunch of people
gonna be a jerk
mad
this year. No.
and yeah, but no, I think I'm proud of you for the self-awareness in that, but also proud of you for the courage to even
Yeah.
speak that goal out loud because I know it it won't be easy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the next thing we're gonna talk about, we had start and continue. So you want to go first on that one?
yeah, so mine's pretty simple. I think as I look back over this last year, one of the things that I am grateful for and also that I just again, want to continue on, I don't want to lose this, is that prioritizing my time with God each day. And for me, that is a morning thing. That is a wake up and just be with God in his word and in prayer. And as I was looking into this next year, if I don't set that time and I don't prioritize it in a way that pushes other things out, like things will creep in, especially someone who likes to work out in the morning
Yeah.
too. Like it can be very easy to think, well, this going for a walk, you see some of these things right now about the things that are best for your health. It's like this much sunshine first thing in the morning. And if you get up and you go for a walk and you do this thing and they give this whole list of things, and I actually am someone who has to be very careful about those sort of goal because what will happen is that time where it's just me and God in the morning and his word will slowly get shrunk down to almost nothing, and I have this whole other priority list that builds that I've gotta wake up and I have to drink this hot water with this thing in it within the first 15 minutes and then make sure that I get outside and I get 15 minutes of sun exposure and don't forget to be barefoot so I'm grounded and, like, all of these
It
things.
reminds me of the Office episode where I think, Toby is giving advice for how people should make sure every single hour that you stand up and stretch, and then he's like, "Make sure every hour that you walk around," and then and Michael's like, "That's like the whole hour." He's like, "Well, you can do it at the same time." Like, they keep stacking on top of each other, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that I think, again, this ties to my stewarding my health is important, but one of the things that I know that is sort of that anchoring point is my time with God has to be a non-negotiable.
That's good. Yeah. I think that my challenge for you and encouragement to you, because one, I would say I've seen you do that really, really well over the last year. You have a place and a practice and you're good at it. You journal in a very different way from me, which is great. Like that's fine. You should not
Very.
journal. But and this is things that you have shared with me, so I'm not like prying into your reality. But I feel like one of the things with your personality is that you always feel like you're starting. And so like a lot of your journaling is, well, God, I've gotten off track.
Have
Like
you
I
been
know
reading my journal again?
well, maybe, but you know, pay attention to the internal conversation because God's not there like, "Oh, good, I'm glad you called me. I'm good. I missed your Marco Polos." Like, God is just like, "I'm glad you're with me today." Like, and that really is a big thing. And I think to pay more attention to not just the disappointments, but the delights that God has in you would be an encouragement to you. So, yeah, you're doing good.
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think one of the things that has helped me, and I do this on and off at different times, is doing that practice of gratitude when I
Mm.
start to journal is just starting it with just what God, I'm so thankful and I praise you for and setting that focus and intention different
Okay.
than beating
Yes.
myself
I'm
up.
going to challenge you again. Ready?
What are you like trying to
I'm bringing it.
disappoint me this
I've been
just
storing up for
kidding.
a week and a half. I think that sometimes gratitude is great, but I think that your gratitude sometimes can turn into a list of things that are true about other people or things that are true in your life. And like, I challenge you to have gratitude for who God's made you to be and how you're experiencing God, not just all the things that are around you.
All right, Dr. Phil. That's not as comfortable for me. So I will ponder that and get back to you.
I think the reason I see this so clearly is because you obviously see the faults of another person that you have with clarity. But my conversation about myself is difficult, but then I'm thankful for the things that are around. Like I'm thankful for my family, but I
Yeah.
feel like I'm a failure. And I think that you need to kind of watch and pay attention to that conversation.
But what if that is true?
Well, sometimes it's not, but it's not true as much as you think it is. Like that's, yeah,
All right. I will pay attention to
walk in
it.
grace, babe.
All right. I'm going to continue walking in grace this year. I changed mine.
With your daily alone time with God.
Yes.
That's great.
How about you? What are you going to continue?
I actually wrote two things. I am going to continue investing in friendships. There's been a lot of transition in like my core group of guys. Dan and I both had vocational transitions, and Dan also had a location transition, not further away, it's actually closer, but there's a lot going on there. And I think in that area, I want to continue to invest in it, but also be okay that it's going to look a little different. And so I've been thinking about talking to the guys about like maybe we need to find a monthly cadence or like, I mean, we text all the time, but so that's something. And then
Maybe you should Marco Polo while you're driving.
that's not gonna happen. And then finally, I would say I'm going to continue being creative. I feel like I want to figure out some sort of practice in the space of writing. Maybe it's a practice like, okay, I'm going to take 2 hours every write or something like that. So write and share. So that's going to be the other thing too, because that's the being willing to disappoint people part of it. So yeah,
I concur. I think you should write more. Well, I think there's good things to come this year.
I hope so.
Probably some hard things too.
Yeah, like trying to get a podcast out every week. We're,
Yes, it's gonna be. We're gonna figure it
we're
out.
going to start thinking more ahead as we come out of the absolute chaos of holidays and health and all that type of stuff.
I
So
feel like most podcasts are probably smarter to not launch in smack in the middle of holidays when
yeah.
they know it's going to be crazy. But I
I
could be
feel like,
wrong.
when everybody else zigs, you want to zag. Like I was like waiting for some of my favorite podcasts to release episodes, and I was like, we're still putting out episodes. And
And now you're like, okay, I'm feeling that decision now.
well,
Zagging, not
yeah,
so optimal.
it's been fun. I was at a church this morning in Massachusetts, and this lady came up to me and she's like, yeah, my husband and I were on a road trip to Albany, and we've been listening through the podcast. And then somebody else was like, oh, you have a podcast. And so it's been fun seeing that become a part of what people kind of know about us. And you were too sick to go to our New Year's party with our friends. And I show up and Chris is like, I made scallops wrapped in bacon because he listened to the podcast and heard that that was my favorite thing. So I don't believe at all in like manifesting, but maybe I should start talking about like some things that I really enjoy.
Teslas
Teslas.
with vanity.
Plural, apparently. We're getting multiple.
Teslas with vanity plates.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, any last words?
Please don't cancel us after today's episode and have mercy on our foggy brained. I don't know. It might have been entertaining.
I think I have some work ahead in the editing, but
This
that
is
said,
true.
I do think we've had 2 listener questions that have prompted future episodes. And so we want to say, please send us a message online. There is a form on our website. We'll try to leave the link in the show notes, but or just direct message us, or if you know us, send Bethany and Marco Polo, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
It is helpful for us to kind of know, and though both of those conversations, I think one, they're going to be difficult, which is why we didn't want to do it in a brain fog.
We literally, honest, we got these listener questions, and one of them, I'm just going to say, was on the true love waits, like, because we grew up in that generation, and it was around that. And we had talked about doing that episode this time, but we came in and we're both, I mean, we're tired. We're coming off the end of a rough week, and we're like, this is probably not a wise time for us to step into a bee's nest, but we will step into that bee's nest.
I will
soon.
disappoint some of you. One will disappoint you by not doing that episode now. And second, we will disappoint you when we do that one. So that'll be it.
It's going to be heated.
I'm excited.
Yeah. We talked about it for like 10 minutes, and we both were like, okay. And clearly there are still some emotions around this. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned for that. Like, share, continue to follow on
subscribe
on YouTube. Yep. And we will see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.